We thank you, by the way. Thank you so much for joining us. If you guys don't know, Senator Bill DeSteff, he is currently the 8th Senatorial District Representative, soon to be 20th with the redistricting, right? So he just passed out you guys take your pencils, take index cards for questions that you may want asked toward the end after we finish our formal questioning. All right, back to the process. So they're going to go 2 minutes. They're going to just introduce themselves. The questions will begin. Each candidate in turn will have 1 minute to respond to the question, and we'll go down the line and back up. At the end, when all the whatever chosen questions have been answered, we will then go to the questions from the audience. Just be mindful that if Senator DeSteff notices it's a duplicate, then of course he's not going to ask it, so no one get offended if your question doesn't make it through, or if it's inappropriate, then obviously we'll pass that over as well. So we're right now, let's see what our numbers are. 2, 4, 5, and 1. All right. Sit down. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so 1, go see your 2. Let's go. 1, 2, what number are you? And 5. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Senator. All right, we're going to start. So just
can you hear me in the back? So we are going to have a little bit more ground rules, and basically we're going to learn civility. So be kind, be nice, be polite, and I will actually step in if you take it beyond and are uncivil toward anyone else. Just so you know, level playing field. We're gonna play by the rules. So for each of the candidates, we're going to do 2 minutes to introduce yourself. And start over there with John.
Whichever you prefer, I would recommend you stand up. Okay, the reason I was pointing. Hey, hi, how are y'all this evening? I'm John Sitka, and I'm running as the candidate for the new 93rd House of Delegates. Now, to get to know me a little bit better, I came to this area in 1979, courtesy of the United States Navy. Retired in 1994 after 20 years. Went to go work in the merchant world. You may have heard of a little company called Merchant Lines, which is downtown Norfolk. I was working in a special missions program for about 10 years. After that, went to go build a school called Mid-Atlantic Maritime Academy. After 10 years there, went down to Texas, helped build a school there called at San Jacinto College. Upon that, came back to Virginia. Then retired. Some of y'all may have remembered that I was running for school board last year in Ward 3. Got to know a lot of the people in the area, a couple thousand people. Just knocking on doors. My first experience with politics. In this new 93rd, it's expanded. To give you an idea how big it is, let's start from Ward's Corner. Go down to Granby, come over to the zoo, cut across to Janet, come back over to St. Pius, over that little creek, and then come on across the river. As y'all can see, it's a huge district of 82,000 people. So far, I've completed all my signatures. Returning those to Helen pretty soon. And looks like there's a lot of folks out there that I think my opponent may find a little bit challenging. So I'll be the Republican for this. I am the only one running. And if y'all have any more questions after the session, please see me. Let me get to know you then. Thank you.
My name is Ken O'Brien. Grew up as an Army brat across the United States and all of Europe. Graduated of the Navy Maritime Academy. I also was in the Merchant Marine, probably 27 years in the United States Navy. I did 4 ships out of here. One of the reasons I came back to Norfolk. I met my wife here, who was a nurse at Portsmouth Naval. I got engaged about a mile down the road here on the beach at Ocean View. Married my wife here, and 2 lovely daughters. You may have seen one of them at the Downtown Republican Club coming in for me while I was on the road last week. came back here because I love the area. I've had fantastic memories here. I used to live on West Ocean View, and I live in Virginia Beach. I came back from overseas 5 years ago, and my wife made the decision this is where I want to be. This is a great area. I think it's improved greatly over the years. I still think it's a jewel that just needs to be polished a little bit more. We need to refine some things and hold some people accountable. I will say that I've only been campaigning for 6 months. I've got 2 fundraisers under my belt, 2 more scheduled. GoDaddy hit us with the #1 website in the city of Norfolk last month. We've been up on OrionFidelity.com. Also have a Facebook and a Twitter account. I've got 16 7-Eleven stores that have dedicated their advertising area to me. I've got 5 restaurants that are already signed up to let me do pop-ups. We've been very aggressive. And I think we're going to continue that aggressiveness. We've knocked on over 1,200 doors already. I've got 200 signatures to turn in to the required 120, and we're continuing to move forward. So very excited about it, very energetic. We will not slow down. I think the second we slow down, you hit your feet. So we're going to keep moving and moving and moving. And I've got 15 seconds left. So, but I'll give it up. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Andy Pittman. I'm running for the House of Delegates, also in District 94 in Norfolk. I'm running to restore common sense, conservative, community-centered leadership to Norfolk. A little bit about myself. I have deep generational roots in the community. I'm a lifelong Norfolk resident, a second-generation Norfolk native. My wife, Jessica, is also a lifelong resident and a fourth-generation Norfolk native. In fact, her great-great-grandfather used to be a policeman in the traffic division in Norfolk and downtown, and one of his main functions was to stand in the middle of the intersection with the white gloves and whistles to direct traffic because they didn't have stoplights back then. So in essence, he was a human traffic light. So I'm an attorney. I've served as an attorney at every level of government, federal, state, and local. I clerked on the U.S. District Court in Norfolk, Court of Virginia Supreme Court as well. And I was an associate city attorney in Virginia Beach, where my primary duty was to represent law enforcement, fire, and paramedical and rescue personnel. My wife and I live in the heart of the 94th District in Ocean View with our 2 small children. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, and they are a large part of the reason of why I'm running for the House of Delegates. I'm running to help make sure that they grow up in the same America and in the same Virginia that we all grew up in, and that they have the opportunity to live the American dream and become all that they are capable of becoming. I think we all want that for our children and our grandchildren, right? We want them to grow up with the same freedoms and liberties that we grew up with. But we know that that American dream is currently under attack day by day by the forces of the left. I mean, we are truly in a battle for the heart and soul of this nation. And that's why it's imperative that we do our part where we live in our district to make sure that we win this seat, that the leftists don't take back the General Assembly. Because it's going to take 10 years to undo the damage they did 2 years ago. Imagine what it will take if they get their hands back on our legislative branch. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Chudzinski. I'm also running for the House of Delegates for the 94th. Does everybody know where the 94th is? Does anybody know the boundaries? I'll just explain it a little bit. We've got, of course, East Beach here, Ocean View, Willoughby. Then we've got Lock Haven, part of Larchmont, ends at Magnolia Avenue. But we've also got the whole St. Pius area as well, places like Tarleton, Amelia Shores. So we've got a nice little section of Norfolk. It is all Norfolk. And I'm originally from Ohio. I decided to move to Virginia because I loved it so much. We used to come to Virginia for vacation when I was a child, and I fell in love. I mean, this is just absolutely a beautiful place. And we used to come often, and I packed up my car. 2 days after I graduated from law school, I packed up my car and drove down here. And I absolutely love it. And I'm a new face. I'm new to politics. I do not have any sort of political background. And I think that's perhaps something we need. We need new faces, fresh ideas. And so I don't come with any sort of agenda. I'm an attorney. Obviously, I went to law school. I was a public defender for 10 years, so I know a lot about our criminal justice system and all the problems that come along with that. Right now, we have a jail that is half empty. Why is that? When we've got people who are experienced, they're victims of crime. How many people have had their cars stolen? I go to my Civic League meeting. I hear about people who've had their cars stolen, their catalytic converter stolen. You know, it takes 40 seconds to steal one of those. 40 seconds. Anyway, I'm an attorney at Protegero Law now in downtown Norfolk, and I hope that you can get to know me a little better tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, how you doing? My name is Giovanni Dolmo. Forgive me for being late. I had an accident. My house caught on fire, so, couldn't even get dressed right. I got displaced. Had issues with my children, trying to get them in a hotel, so forgive me for being late. I'm running for senator, District 21. It's a new district that's coming up. And the reason why I'm running is because I'm tired of the city being in shambles. Unfortunately, I'm running independent this time. I'm not running Republican. A lot of my neighbors hate Republican. They just hate an R next to the name, and they don't see me as the individual. They just see an R next to my name, and they automatically won't vote for me. So I'm trying to be a genuine, going independent, speaking to the people, and actually getting the vote. And that's the reason why I'm running, to really make a real change.
Ken? Well, we're going to start with you. John got it started, and then we're going to roll down, and everybody's going to be next.
That's like new math.
There you go. It is. So let's start with something easy, real easy. What do you feel are the top 5 issues facing Virginia today?
Well, I'd like to narrow it down. I think all politics are local. While we're up in Richmond, it's the opportunity to represent the district and the people here. We are a state, and I think a lot of the state laws need to be changed. Unfortunately, the Dems had all 3 sections of government and passed a lot of considered bad laws. I think I refer to as the Virginia trifecta. We've got the governor now, we've got the lieutenant governor, and we've got the attorney general to push us forward on a lot of issues. I think locally here, one of the areas is flooding and storm damage. I'd like to see the district as a whole, utilities buried, improve visibility, improve the not downtime for the electricity that's going to be taken away, damage to the homes, etc. I think crime is a big one. I think it's a multifaceted. It's just not locking people up. I think habitual criminals need to be locked up, but I think we need to take a look at opportunities for the youth and other people. If we improve the economy and provide a lot of opportunities. I had the opportunity to talk to the Hampton Road Black Caucus. And
I think that's time, so we're going to have to put it to the next one. If you guys could just try to keep it to 1 minute and make sure you watch our timekeeper. She will not throw anything at you, but Robert Dean may.
Whichever you're comfortable with, you can stand or sit. I prefer to stand, but whatever you guys are comfortable with.
So the top 5 issues facing voters today, I want to say crime. But it's a big concern, but we'll say crime, public safety with that, of course, the efficiencies in our police department, the economy, jobs, education. But as far as crime, I've been going to a bunch of civic leagues, and I can tell you, the number 1 most popular person at every meeting is the community resource officer. Everybody's waiting on the edge of their seat for the police officer to come in and tell them about the crime of the preceding month. And they're sick and tired of it. They're sick and tired of woke prosecutors not putting people in jail. They're sick and tired of criminal defense attorneys getting people off of technicalities and putting criminals back in the streets. They're sick and tired of the crime first, victim last mentality. They're sick and tired of going to sleep at night wondering if they're going to wake up to a $1,500 bill to replace their Cadillac converter because some thief slid under their car and, like Amy said, in 40 seconds, poof, the Cadillac converter's gone. So it's a big issue. I'm hearing about that everywhere in the district. See, my time is up, and I'll pass the baton.
I think one of the number 1 top issues is education. My nieces and my nephews, I want them to have a bright future, and I worry every day about them. And we've got to make sure that parents are number one. They are the force behind our children. Parents need to be involved in their children's education, and they need to know everything that's going on. Our children were harmed in ways that we haven't even begun to understand by the pandemic and schools being shut down. And they are lagging, they're far behind, so we've got to do everything we can to get them caught up. Of course, crime is another huge issue, and again, being on the front lines of the criminal justice system, I know that there are a lot of problems that need to be fixed. What goes hand in hand with that is also mental health. We have a huge problem with mental health, and it crosses lines. It also includes our criminal justice system. It also includes our children that are also suffering greatly and having mental health crises as well. And my time is up. Thank you.
The 5 main things I see is taxes, corruption, leadership, crime and safety. Taxes are too high. I mean, just getting this hotel, I saw like 3 different taxes. And I'm like, man, I got to talk to the governor about this. This is ridiculous. What I'm trying to do is get a place for my kids to maintain for a whole month until the fire stuff gets fixed. We couldn't find no leadership to help us. It's corrupted in the Norfolk. I mean, from the mayor down, they don't want to help. You can't even get a hold of the mayor. I could get a hold of Bobby Darden faster than I can get a hold of Alexander. This is just ridiculous. Education is wild. The 2.0 is what they need for play basketball. That's way too low. So those are the reasons.
Let's pass it all the way back down. We've got John Sitka real quick. Sitka. That's
Okay, 5. He said 5. Let's talk about one of them. Mental health. Governor has a report from the state saying our mental health facilities, research boards are abominable. They're just terrible to visit. And what I'm saying is, some of the emergency services underfunded. How about this? Education. Here in Norfolk, we have security issues. Fights going on. There's 3 channels in one high school on Instagram of fights constantly all day. Number 3, how about fraud, waste, and abuse? Let's start with the Virginia Employment Commission. How many millions of dollars did we lose during COVID? And they're still trying to fight with the fraud. I got some hard stories to tell you about that. And the last thing is police. I support the governor's broad blue line. Let's get some funding to these communities, and let's see if we can get students involved. Thank you.
Let's pass it down again for the next question.
And for the candidates, thank you guys very much for following the timekeeper today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background. We've all talked a little bit about education. We have moms and dads, grandmothers, grandfathers in this room alone. And one of the things we've learned during COVID is what our children are being taught. They're not being taught the ABCs, they're being taught CRT. And then when our children are checking out books, we're learning about sexually graphic depicted novels that are in our middle schools. And this is the same information that if it were out in public, then it would be X-rated and you'd have to be 18 or above, but it's in our middle schools, so our children have the opportunity to check it out. So, talk to me a little bit about what you would do to focus on education reform and how you feel you can address this, because that's where it's done. It's done in the legislature.
Well, that's difficult to answer in 60 seconds, but I'll give it my best shot. We need to focus back on the basics. Reading, writing, arithmetic. We need to put parents back in charge of their children's education. A school should not be a place where a child goes for indoctrination. The radical Democrats have turned our institutions of higher learning into institutions of indoctrination, pushing a radical ideology, pushing a woke curriculum, pushing ideas in our kids that we would never dream of teaching them. And this is a blessing, I think, of the pandemic. It opened a lot of people's eyes to what was going on in the school system because they were eavesdropping or looking at what their children were seeing via Zoom. So we need to go back, we need to focus on the basics, put parents back in charge of their children's education.
Instead of fighting about what CRT is, because frankly, the experts can't even agree on what it is. Again, I agree with getting back to the basics, but you know what else we need to do? We need to make sure that our children understand civics. They understand how our government works, because somewhere along the way, I guess they stopped teaching that. They need to understand geography. They need to know about the levels of government, how bills are passed, how laws are passed in this country. In addition, they also need to know about taxes, how to balance a checkbook, how to service your car. They need to know the basics of living. And as far as I'm concerned, every school, we should start in the grade schools, frankly. Let's talk to them about career fields. Let's talk to them about getting certifications and getting into programs where they can be employed when they get out of school, instead of wondering how they're going to find a job to support their families. Let's get back to the American dream. Thank you.
All right, the reality is, if I make senator, I can't do it alone, right? The reality is that the Democrats own the Senate right now, and the House can run past currently, can pass whatever they want, and it won't get through the government. What has to happen is the message has to change. Like Florida. Florida has a whole Republican, that's taking care of the people. As long as we have the opposite side opposing one another, you're not going to get to no resolution one way or the other. So what has to happen is there has to be some type of unity, or it has to be the right message so people can vote the right way to get the right results. Other than that, Virginia's going to stay the way it is. That's the reality of it, no matter who gets elected. Because not one person here can make a difference in that aspect.
Yeah, for me, education is one of the things I saw when I was running for school board. Here's the deal. I looked at something called, some of y'all remember from high school, distributed education. Go to work half a day, go to school half a day. Guess what? Some of these kids in high school are not ready to be in high school full time. I'm willing to put forth a bill to do what is called workforce education. We're starting at age 14. We can start getting them ready for the workforce, and then once they're eligible for a job, let's put them to work a half a day and a school a half a day, because they still get credit, they still can graduate, and in many cases they can get certifications.
I'll add on to that subject that John just talked about. I grew up, taking shop classes, electrical, cement work, everything else in high school. In Europe, I saw the factories come in and take kids and train them in high school, bring them to the workforce in the afternoon, and then bring them directly into the workforce when they graduate. I'm not a big CRT fan. I'd like to see it go away, but I'll touch on some other subjects. I'm tired of hearing, when my daughters are older, I'm glad I'm not putting up with it, about males using the ladies' restrooms. I'm tired. Women fought 100 years ago to have certain rights. Now we've got men and women's sports. That's got to go away. I think that the school system is bloated. The amount of money we spend on administrators in a school and not teachers is sinful. It almost needs a complete overhaul and a look at it. Those are just some of the topics. I mean, you could talk about education forever. The library books, everything else. I'd like to almost see a appointed school board member from perhaps the governor or the mayor on it, not just all elected. And then I'd also like to see the,
So our number one killer of Virginians today is opioids, but primarily fentanyl. Last year in 2021, we had over 2,044 people die from fentanyl. It's in our schools. It's made to look like Smarties and candies. It's made to look like everything from Viagra to aspirin. And frankly, we've got to take a harder stance on this. But what's your position, and what would you do about it?
First of all, we have to fully staff law enforcement in Norfolk. It's my understanding that the narcotics division and the Norfolk Police Department, they have a few detectives. They're down to just a few. And that's shameful, frankly, because it is killing our children. And it's being marketed to children, like you said, because isn't it fun? And unfortunately, our communities are being flooded because the cartels across the border are making sure that it's flooding in. And I mean, this is obviously a bigger problem. I mean, we've got border problems in this country, and we need to address that as well. But education is critical, and we have to start talking to our children about these things, educating them, educating families. We also have to address treatment, because it's happening to our families all across the Commonwealth. It's touched everybody. So education and assistance and drug treatment. Thank you, my time is up.
I agree with Amy. My daughter actually worked with a young lady at Ocean Breeze who died over it. She was a 17-year-old young lady, and it was very devastating to hear that. I would definitely write a bill that would increase law enforcement to help that. And because there's not much you can do what's going on. You can't control what's going on in California, what's going on at the federal level. But at the state level, we can try our best to protect or write any laws to protect the community that we have here in our state and here in Norfolk. So any bill that will protect our community is what I will definitely support.
One of our issues is our city Commonwealth attorney. We have laws in the books that need to be enforced. I want to make sure our state laws are stronger, or these are felonies. And if anyone dies as a result of distribution, that they're prosecuted accordingly. One of the big things has to be enforcement. And if the city of Norfolk won't take the lead, then the state will have to pick up where the city failed. So we got to get our kids not to die. Yes, I believe in education of the community, but how do we do that? Are we expecting our school systems to do it? Maybe we're going to have our churches do it. How about this? We need to also support our mental health, the community service boards. Trust us, they're going to need all the support for this.
I think the other candidates have covered most of the thing on fentanyl. I will say this, I travel a lot and I get warnings. It's just not kids taking it anymore. We have cases where a baby died recently in an Airbnb on drugs that were left over in that Airbnb. I think it was like a 8-month-old. It was really, really sad. I will also say that I know for a fact, I've read the police reports where people are lacing dollar bills and coins with fentanyl and putting them on the ground, and people are picking them up, and just that, your sweat being absorbed through your skin, the fentanyl will kill you. So this is out of control. John hit it, I think, on the head. We need to make the penalty so hard that we drive people away from this. And it's in the federal government, it's coming across the border. I'm not sure what we can do with that at the state level, but if we make the punishment hard enough and we prosecute these people, I think we can at least make a dent. But it's over 100,000 people this year in the United States alone. And that is just sad and disgusting.
Yeah, fentanyl is deadly. We all know that. Just 2 milligrams, I think, is more than enough to kill everyone in this room. Just a little bit fits on top of the tip of a pencil. But I think the solution is fairly simple. It's a return to common sense. If you do the crime, you do the time. Drug dealers need to know there are consequences for peddling that poison in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We need to change the law so that if you intentionally distribute this poison to somebody and they die, you're going to be facing murder charges with severe, hard time. We need to have the law so that even if you're out of state, if you knowingly distribute it to the Commonwealth of Virginia, we will extradite you and we will punish you to the fullest extent of the law, and all of your associates will be charged with conspiracy. We'll take down the whole gang. Because when you do the crime, you do the time, and we're all safer when the criminals are off our streets.
So the next one is on abortion. What is your position on abortion? The governor's, well, actually, I'm not going to go into the governor's position. What's your position? This is coming up on the candidates. The Democrats, that's going to be their #1 target. What's your position? How are you going to counter it?
This is a real easy position for me. I'm a pastor in my community, and I'm a man of God, and I won't support abortion at all. Because of my faith and where I stand, unless God tells me to change my faith and change my way of thinking, I don't support abortion. That's just my stance.
You know, I talked to another pastor as well, to an African-American pastor, and so I understand that's exactly how many of the African-American community feels about it. They're not in for it, regardless. There is a law, Commonwealth Law, Title 18, Chapter 42, Article 9. That law stands for first and second trimester. Right now, I will tell you in the last assembly, neither the Republicans nor the Democrats introduced any law. Even my opponent didn't even say anything either. That's fine. Right now, until we have a consensus of my community in the 93rd that feels, yes, we want to change it, and I want to see what my constituents say, I'm going to go with what they say, but I like the fact that you look at your conscience first. Because I have to remember, a lot of the folks in this community who I support and will be running for do go to church.
During the last election cycle, I think Jen Higgins was the only one who really stepped forward with an answer. Her answer to the Democrat when Wayne Laurie challenged her on this was, what is your position? They won't answer it to the Democrats. And basically, they're for full term. Even some after birth, if you look at the previous governor on his comments. And that's just wrong. I would like to see every child have the opportunity to grow and go forward. I did talk with Lieutenant Governor Winston at a meeting, and she said they were moving forward 15 weeks as a compromise moving forward. I can live with that. I'm not excited about it, but I will say this. I have friends that foster and adopt in this state, and those programs are horrible. They are totally underfunded. They are mismanaged. If we're going to bring children into this world, and we're going to give them the opportunity to succeed, we need a better program to treat them through life up to 18 years old, where they have opportunities, a loving family, and the opportunities to succeed. And right now, that does not exist in this state.
Well, I'm pro-life. And as Republicans, we are the party of pro-life. And we should never be ashamed of that. It's the radical Democrats who are in the extreme. I think the Republican Party, mainstream Democrats are more in the mainstream on this issue. I think we can all agree as Republicans and Democrats, we want to see fewer abortions. But the Democrat Party has been hijacked by a left-wing extremist group that champions things today that yesterday's Democrats never would have dreamed of supporting. The party that used to be the party of making abortion safe, legal, and rare is now the party of abortion up until the moment of birth, and in some cases after birth, which we used to call that infanticide, the homicide of a child. So the current Democrat Party is way to the extreme. Make no mistake, the Democrat Party is the party of the extremists on abortion. We are the party of common sense. We are the party of life.
I'm Catholic, so I could never have an abortion. But I do understand that I cannot impose that belief on other people. Just some statistics for you. 2019, the CDC reported 97.5% of abortions performed in Virginia occurred within 15 weeks. The Virginia Department of Health, from 2021, 95% of the abortions reported in Virginia occurred during the first trimester. Again, I'm not saying that I agree with it, but unfortunately it is a reality. There are instances where it may be necessary, incest, rape, to protect the life of the mother. What the Democrats spread is lies. They try to say that women will be denied life-saving procedures. That is an absolute, flat-out lie. So they just need to start telling the truth. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to correct one of the issues that were one of the statements. There was about 20 bills on abortion this year at varying levels. The one that was actually heavily debated on the Senate floor was Jennifer McClellan's bill when she was asked. Jennifer's a congresswoman now out of Richmond, but she put a bill forward that said basically up until the baby's born, like during the birthing canal or shortly thereafter, the decision could be made. That was pointed out to her in the details of it, and I'll be honest with you, there's only about 40 people, maybe 60 people I've talked to in the General Assembly who believe we should be able to have a baby and then decide. Our former governor said we'll keep the baby warm and then we'll decide up to 7 days after. I can't find many people other than maybe 60 people up in Richmond who truly believe that that's the case. California just came out with a new law that gives you up to 30 days to decide after the baby's born. That's murder, that's infanticide. So, but when it comes down to the bills last year, there were about 30 bills on this, and that one was debated on the Senate floor. It died on the Senate floor. We had 3 Democrats truly cross the line and vote against that bill. Again, I wasn't going to go into the facts on this, but that's where it is. And the debate isn't abortion yes or no. It's legal, it's the law of the land. It's where do you put the guardrails? And that's the debate we have to have. That's a heated debate. And there's going to be a lot of folks who hit the science. There's going to be a lot of folks who hit facts and figures of when it happens now. But the guardrails are really where it's going to be. That's where the debate will be framed. That's how the debate will be framed, and that's what will be provided in the future. Enough said on that. We'll move forward to the next question. And I'm going to combine this and give a little background because there's a couple of questions from the audience. There's one that I was going to ask. Right now, we know that if you're a felon and you have a gun, you committed another felony and violated your parole. What are your thoughts on gun control, and what are your thoughts on limiting guns to criminals, or I can't really say allowing criminals access to guns, because if you're convicted of a felony, it's already against the law to have a gun. If you have a weapon and you commit a crime, that's already, for the most part, another felony. So kind of what's your position and where do we go from here with it? Now, Giovanni, I believe you started the last question, or, okay. So there we go. So over to you, John. You're next.
I have a problem with gun control because I don't want to end up like Chicago. Chicago doesn't really have the strongest gun laws with the highest crime. I know places where they do this kind of stuff, and unfortunately, it really works against the community. One of the things about the community where I'm at, we have a lot of African and Latin American crimes. If we just take guns away from folks, I'm telling you, the people who are the victims are not going to have any hope because it's just going to run away. So when it comes to gun control, I'm not one of those folks who are going to find that says, yeah, let's eliminate all guns. That's for criminals. The law stands. If you're a felon, you're not supposed to have a gun. I know in some areas, if you have any kind of aggravated attached with being a felon, means you use a gun in a commission of a crime. No, it's just on for you for life. But if it's something else, I think I would have to look at that if it was presented. But I'm not going to say yes to any law until I see what the law says.
I'm a pro-Second Amendment guy. I can still carry pretty much everywhere I go. I can't bring it on base. You can't bring it into a bar. I don't bring it to church. But however, with the carjacking and fines and everything, as you said, you become the victim if you can't defend yourself. I do, however, believe that there should be, I'm not a big fan of 50 cal sniper rifles, cannons, things like that people have, but I think you have a right to own a gun. and a right to protect yourself. I will say that I think we've restricted greatly the police's options. If you're not familiar, if you're driving down the street here, if you run a stop sign, if you get caught speeding, or you run a light, the cop can pull you over and look at you. If you have a broken tail light, the cop pulls you over. You have 4 dead bodies in the back, 50 guns in the back. None of that material you can use against you in court because that's constituted an illegal search. That was passed when the Dems had all 3 forms of government up north. And now they put the bill in to pass it. It passed in the House, it died in the Senate. We need to make neighborhoods safer, and to do that, we need to take the handcuffs off the police in order to protect us too, as well as ourselves.
So I don't want to sound like I'm beating a horse, but I think it goes back to common sense. If you do the crime, you do the time. We can have extra penalties for gun violence. I think we already have those on the books. I'm a strong supporter of Second Amendment. In what city in the Commonwealth of Virginia should be the poster child for gun rights other than Norfolk? I mean, think about it. We're 250 police officers down. If there's no right to defense at all, you have to be able to defend yourself. Gun restrictions only impact law-abiding citizens. All they do is they disarm the innocent and the law-abiding and further arm and entice the criminal to commit more crime. But we are in a battle for the heart and soul of this nation. Just the other day, an 11-year-old child pulled out a gun and shot another teenager, a 17-year-old. There's something bad wrong in our society when that happens. Gun restrictions won't fix that. It's already illegal. Making it more illegal won't fix it.
No existing or future gun law is going to abolish gun crime. It's the guns aren't the problem, the laws aren't the problem. It's the fact that we have diminishing values. The value of life is diminished greatly. Our morality is crumbling. Let me tell you, I represented criminals on these gun charges. Do you think that any one of them got those guns by legal means? Absolutely not. So the harsher gun laws, they are just going to punish average citizens, gun owners like me, gun owners like you. So again, get the criminals off the streets, lock them up, and punish them appropriately, because those guns, let's get those illegal guns off the street, and let's start getting some morals and some ethics back into our country.
Okay, so I was raised in New York City, and where crime was really high back in the 80s and 90s, and there was a mayor named Giovanni. And every time I walked home, there was crack, cocaine, people getting robbed, but there were certain laws that he made that made my journey to school easier and safer. And those laws was being hard on those criminals that was making those crimes. So we can go to those laws, and I will write those bills to be harsh on these criminals out in these streets that have these illegal guns. Then we can get the crime down and get these illegal guns off the street.
All right. Keep that in the back of your mind, because we're going to come back to that in a second. HRT on March 20th will host the first of several planned public meetings regarding the expansion of light rail to Military Circle. What are your thoughts on expanding light rail within the city of Norfolk?
Well, I spent 15 years in Europe before I came back here, and mass transit was pretty much the norm in Europe where you went. The cost of it is amazing. A lot of it's hidden. If you look at California, what they're building for that train to nowhere, billions of dollars now. We paid, to encourage the people to use the mass transit, we were paying about $8 a gallon of gas into the bill. And that's about the norm in Europe. So it comes with a price tag. I don't mind expanding stuff, but we have to take a kind of a round turn on it and be honest with the public and say, what is it going to really cost us? How is it going to affect us? I mean, we have $3.6 billion surplus in the state of Virginia. We are definitely overtaxed. Hopefully that money goes back to us. Some of it may go to other projects, but if we can look at projects that benefit everybody, cut down on some of the pollution, maybe cut down some of the traffic, and that may be an advantage on us. But we have to take a look at the beginning and the end state. I'm tired of people telling me it's the best thing ever, best thing since sliced bread, and then we get it and start looking at maintenance costs and everything else, and we're all paying the price for it.
Yeah, as far as light rail expansion, I don't really know that now's the time. We have our residents concerned about just making ends meet. Their concerns are having enough money left over in their paycheck so they can buy groceries at the grocery store. They're already concerned about a reckless and feckless level of government spending that eviscerates their life savings, makes it harder to make ends meet, makes it where they have to work 2 and 3 jobs while they watch their savings dwindle with inflation. So I think instead of investing in large transportation projects, which I really haven't heard a high demand in the community for, we should invest in our people. And our first priority, frankly, that goes with public safety. We should be investing in law enforcement. Instead of using those dollars for an HRBT expansion of light rail, we should be making sure the police department has everything it needs to hire the best and the brightest to keep us safe.
Every day I listen to that bell clang as it goes past my office window. And you look out and you see the 2 or 3 people riding that nobody rides it. So I really don't see how adding another route, so 3 more people will ride it. I think that we have a lot of other transportation issues that we can address. I mean, look at the traffic. You know, look at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and thank God that we're expanding that. But, you know, we've got roads filled with potholes. We could build another connector so that we can travel back and forth from the peninsula. We have a lot of other issues that we can address before, again, building a train that goes to nowhere that nobody rides.
I'm going to have to agree with them. Listen, I've been here almost 20 years. That's a waste of money. I've been hearing about flooding for 20 years, streets for 20 years. That's going to be a waste of money to try to expand into military highway. As what she said, I barely see anyone riding that thing. College kids don't ride it. No one rides it. I'm like, what is the purpose of this thing? It's truly a waste of money, and we don't want the city to waste more money on it.
No, it is. To me, it's an unimaginable thing. It sounds like somebody's saying, the city of Norfolk's got too much money. Quit taking my tax money and putting it on things that are not going to work. It's foolishness. Y'all mentioned it. Roads need to be fixed. The one that's used now is underutilized. Come on. We have better things to spend our money on. Please. Roads. In some cases, maybe fixing some of the education problems that are taking place. So let's spend the money where it needs to be spent. Quit spending it on foolishness.
Back to Andy. So we all know about the homeless issue. We see it on the streets every day. What are your thoughts? What are you going to do about the homeless issue?
I think first and foremost, the homeless issue involves a mental health aspect. I think there are a lot of folks with mental challenges that are on the streets. And I've talked to some police officers, and they've told me they've approached these people that are out in the streets, and they've offered to take them to community centers, they've offered to take them to shelters, and you know what? They refuse. And if they refuse, there's nothing that the police officer can do. I think we need to increase our funding for mental health services with the disabled. We need to have more of a community outreach, maybe have the localities not just sit and wait for folks to come to them, but to go out, meet with these homeless people, get to know them, get to know their needs, develop a level of trust so they'll feel safe and secure about going to the homeless shelter. I think we need more of a proactive, community-centered approach to that, and I think that can make a positive difference.
I think you're definitely onto something there. There's definitely a mental health component. Now, in the city of Norfolk, we do have organizations that help the homeless. I'm sure how many of you have seen those signs at the certain intersections that say, please don't encourage panhandling. There are organizations that help the homeless. And they do. When I was a public defender, I experienced that firsthand because a lot of my clients were homeless. I had a member of the community services board on speed dial. I used to call her all the time because my boss used to assign me a lot of people with severe mental health problems. And I said, why do you keep giving me all these cases? And she said, because you're so good with them. And it is a problem, but it's not a problem that's ever going to go away. You're never going to resolve homelessness because, again, for some people it's not a choice, but for others it is. And we can't stop people from living the way that they want to live. But what we can do is provide resources. And just to give you some statistics, Governor Youngkin recommended more than $230 million. Sorry. I'm passionate about it.
Like Amy said, I've actually, as a pastor, have spoken to a lot of several homeless people, enjoyed their conversation, and you'd be surprised, they want to be homeless. You know, they like it, they don't want the responsibility, they don't want to pay mortgage or rent, they want to be out in the street. There's only a tiny bit you actually want to make a change, which was surprising to me. But if you actually talk to a homeless person, this is what they want to do, and they've been through a lot too. Certain circumstances make them want to stay in that circumstance. All you can do is provide resources where they can come in and go, because that's exactly what they want. But for the ones who want to change their lives, you got to have those resources available for them too.
Well, this one's in my wheelhouse. I did work at the Virginia Beach Community Service Board when I was working on my master's degree in professional counseling. This is where I first got exposed to it. I did go visit with the Norfolk Community Service Board. We talked about this issue. There are some people, now I'm not one for spending tax money, but when it comes to people who cannot take care of themselves, correct? Then of course, yes, that's those people who need help. They do have something called emergency services. Right now, there's no money for it. Emergency services where they go out, meet the people on the streets, and bring them in and get help. And I've seen the facilities that they have apartments for these folks. They would be fine if we could do that. But the state is the only place that can fund that. Because the city can only do so much. So.
I think this definitely drives us from the mental health side of the house. But I would like, I've seen some studies. An example is one recent one with young youths 14 to 20. The suicide rate for that class of people increased 8% last year. And that's just the suicide rate, not the number of people who have left home and gone out on the street. I think we need, just like we look at crime, with a lot of starting at the youth level, I think we need to start looking at mental health starting at the youth level. People who aren't properly supported don't have the family values that some people have. And if we can stop it there, I think we'll significantly reduce the number of people that we have in the older groups. And there are people that there's nothing you can do for them except try to help them. Give them something. I've met people outside of 7-Eleven, and they're like, "Do you have $1?" I said, "No, but I'll take you inside and get you a donut and a cup of coffee or a sandwich if you want it." And about 1/3, 1 out of 3 will take that offer. The rest will go in, buy another pack of cigarettes, or I see them smoking. So can't afford a sandwich, but you've got you're smoking a $10 pack of cigarettes.
All right, so the next one is, everybody's familiar with in Norfolk, the Commonwealth Attorney, and the rising crime in the city, the shortfall of police officers, lack of accountability for enforcement of specific and certain laws in Norfolk. What do you think you can do to tighten that up? What can you do to fix that specifically for Norfolk, because you will be representing Norfolk?
The average criminal who commits homicide has been arrested 11 times before committing that homicide. And I represented people that had been committing crimes for decades. I've had people that had been convicted of 30 plus felonies, and they were out walking the streets. Why is that happening? People who are violent need to go to prison, period. And the problem is, right now, we've got a system where, well, let's just let everybody out. Let's not hold anybody on bail. Let's not hold anybody without bail. And we need to tighten that up. Our jail is half empty, forcing no bail for people who have a significant criminal history, because it's the same small group of people that's committing the majority of the crime, and that needs to end. My time is up. Thank you.
All right. For Democrats and Republicans, this is an issue in both neighborhoods. When I was in the military, if something happened to the ship, the captain was held accountable no matter what. The leadership in Norfolk is the problem. They're not holding them, no one's holding them accountable for what's happening in the city. I become senator, I'm gonna write bills to hold them accountable. You're gonna lose your job because people are losing their lives. And it's only fair. That's the least you can do. So that's where I start and that's where I finish, to make sure that things get done the right way.
On that same point, I know what the governor of Florida did when an attorney general, the district attorney did not fulfill his obligations in fulfilling the law. What did he do? Fired him. Now that's going to have something change at the state level before that changes. Unless we change the leadership in Norfolk, it'll have to happen at the state level. But we're going to have to change that to make that happen. So when you talk about these things, yeah. One of the things about police, I told you I marked the broad blue line, funding and special equipment education for our police officers. Hey, how about this? Remember I talked earlier about that workforce program we're going to start in schools? Let's take some of these kids, recruit them into the police. They have programs they mentioned to me that they could find and put them to work, get them paid, get them educated.
Well, a couple points on the subject. The first one is we need to take a look at our parole board. If you haven't seen the recent newspaper articles, our parole board is kicking people out of prisons like there's no tomorrow that have felonies. One after the other. They're taking 20, 30 years off of their sentence, and that's just wrong. Second issue, got good lawyers here. But who's got to leave a good private practice to run for the Commonwealth attorney? What we end up with, in some cases, are low-quality people funded by guys like George Soros. I wrote a letter to the editor the other day, did not get printed, but it was a new concept. It was, why do you have to be a lawyer in 5 years on a Virginia bar in order to be a Commonwealth attorney? If you have lawyers working for you, some of the best people I worked for were not subject matter experts in what we did, but they were great leaders, and they knew how to manage people and people under them. If you have 10 lawyers working for you underneath you, you need to be an attorney, or you need to be a common sense person who understands the needs of your community and can exercise and enforce the laws that you think are best for your community. And I would like to see that as a change. I'd like to see people in there care.
I would like to give the Attorney General more authority to intervene in localities when the local Commonwealth attorney is not prosecuting state law. I would like to strengthen the presumption against bail. If you commit a crime, the presumption should be that you are a danger to the safety, health, and welfare and well-being of the community until you prove otherwise. Also, I'd like to, something I haven't heard a lot of discussion about, I'd like to increase funding for the Commonwealth Attorney's offices. Right now, in most localities, do you know who prosecutes the majority of misdemeanors? Your local police force. Because the Commonwealth Attorney's funding is predicated on felonies. They pass it down. The city attorney's offices has passed it down. So your police officers are overtaxed. They're not just out in the streets keeping you safe, but they're playing lawyer early in the morning trying to prosecute these crimes. I think we need to give funding so that Commonwealth attorneys have no excuse but to prosecute the small crimes. Prosecute the small crimes, you prevent the big crimes.
Okay, the next one. And I'm going to try to phrase this as not to put anyone on the spot. So, my wife is sitting here taking pictures right now. We are deciding who we're gonna, once the primary goes through, but who we're gonna fund in the election. So, for us to give you money, what bag of tricks? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna separate yourself? How are you gonna get elected in your district, in the 94th district or in the 21st district, and pull the independent vote, pull the Republican vote, and pull the light Democratic vote? Because that's what it's gonna take in today's environment. So for my wife to tell me, hey, let's make sure we give them a big check, or let's just give them a little check, what are you going to do? How are you going to convince her, not me, her on this? And I know there's a lot of the ladies out here thinking the same thing. What are you going to do to get me, to convince me that you can get elected in a diverse environment that we're looking at here in Norfolk with Republicans, independents, and our light Democrats?
Good question. I've thought about this question a lot. The reality is, I'm genuine. I live in that community, and when I ran Republican, I was given bad advice that didn't reflect my community at all. And I realized that Republicans didn't understand what the community that I live in actually go through. We actually agree in many things, but the way the Republican Party was running things was incorrect. You could not get their vote because they couldn't even speak to them, or they couldn't even connect with my own community. The difference between me is, now that I'm running independent, I can actually speak to my community because I live in them, they see me, and I connect, and I know the issues because I live with those same issues. The crime is high, there's people dying around the corner from me. You know, the kids are not even going to school. I keep telling them, go home. I encourage them to go to school with my kids. I go to the schools, I see the parents, I see the teachers, and that's how I connect with the community. I'm not focused on money, I'm focused on community.
I understand your situation. I was running, as I said, I was running for school board in Ward 3. Some of y'all know that's a lot of central Norfolk. And to be honest with you, they not related immediately with people, but they saw my passion. They saw how I stood for them on the school. Sure, I didn't win. Doesn't matter. But they saw me. They saw how I believed. Now the 93rd encompasses Ward 3, and somebody from our party needs to be in it. I'm the only one. It takes courage to do it. And I'm going to go out there, save people, let them know I care about them. I haven't changed the same issues, and that's what I'm going to focus on. I already know who my opponent is. I already know what kind of advantages she has. So I'm just going to focus on the issues of the community and focus on what needs to be taken care of.
So I've already been out door knocking over 1,200 doors. And I knock on every door. I knock on a Dem door, I knock on a Republican door, I knock on an independent door. Why is that? Well, because I think the values that we have are the solutions to the problems that we have here. And I talk to everybody. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, in a +2D district is go out and make fun of the guy currently in office, make fun of the way the person you are talking to voted, and chastise the person for voting for the other party. It's a matter of convincing and talking with them and integrating them. As soon as we get a little bit better weather here, like I said, I've got 16 7-Elevens. I'll be doing stand-ups, and I've got 3 pop-ups, and I've got 3 restaurants I'll be doing pop-ups. It's about getting your face out, getting your name recognition with the material that you have. And that's kind of the focus of my campaign. Grassroots, getting out, not the TV. Every store I go to, my wife doesn't go shopping with me anymore. It takes me an hour to get out of the store because I talk to everybody in it. So she got tired of waiting in the car once she drove off without me. So anyway, I had to walk home. But it's about getting your face out. It's about engaging with the community.
So I think it's fairly straightforward. People out there, they're ready for change. And they're not looking for partisanship. They're looking for leadership. I'm reminded of a speech Ronald Reagan gave many years ago. where he talked about our party had a choice of being the party of pale pastels or big, bold, beautiful colors. And what he meant is that we should be a party with strong values, and we should clearly articulate those values on the issues that matter most to the voters. And he had for years a group of Democrats called Reagan Democrats. How did he attract them? Not by becoming a Democrat, but by focusing on the issues that matter to everybody. You know, for my campaign color, I picked blue as my color. I didn't pick light blue, I picked dark blue, or as I like to call it, bold blue. Because it signifies that we stand for something as a party. And if we focus on the issues that matter most to folks, crime, putting parents first in education, the economy and jobs, they'll gravitate towards us. And I've had Democrats at my kickoff. I've had Democrat friends who are supporting me, and I see my time's up. But we've done it before in Norfolk, and we can do it again.
Your question was what bag of tricks I would use. None. I don't have a bag of tricks. I am who I am. I am not a politician. I'm a normal person. I understand now why normal people don't do this, because it is hard. And John said it does take courage. But I am willing to talk to people that nobody else wants to talk to. I've been told don't walk certain neighborhoods. I'm walking those neighborhoods. I was knocking on doors. On Saturday, I had the door slammed in my face. I talked to people that didn't, they're not registered to vote. I think that's where we're failing. We need to get people registered to vote. I asked people, can I help you register? No, I'm not involved in all that. I don't care. I'm going to go back and talk to those people because they need to understand. Apathy is a big problem. We've got people that truly don't care, and I want to get those people to care. Thank you.
So the next one should be pretty simple. How do you plan to support small businesses, large businesses, for overall job creation in Virginia?
I kind of alluded to this earlier when I mentioned the Virginia Employment Commission and fraud. Let me tell you what, when we have fraud like this and we lose a lot of tax money to people who shouldn't get it, that also hurts businesses and corporations. Think about it. We have to tax more to make up for that loss, rather than there was no oversight. One of the things is I've talked about workforce, and that's because I know we're hurting for employees, whether it's small businesses or large businesses. I'd love to see if we could do this workforce bill that I want to pass through, give some sort of tax credits or tax breaks to businesses that bring kids in. Think about it. They need more employees. If we get them started earlier, let's have a way to fund all of that. And I think if we can do this, I'm a supporter. My opponent doesn't like big corporations. Let me tell you what. That's how we feed our families. Whether you're a small business or corporations, we put food, bread, and water on the table, have a roof over our head, and guess what? Somebody's got to give them support.
I also support the workforce aspect of it. I think you can train people. The shipyards are short on welders, electricians, pipe fitters. There's a lot of youths that want to get in there. They're having trouble getting clearances. I was working with a group to interview the kids, take a look at kids that had a lot of misdemeanors that were keeping them from getting clearances, and then sending a letter up to the governor asking them to push aside those misdemeanors that would actually open them up to get clearances and let these kids in. I'm a member of the Ocean View Business Association. I talk to those people, what helps them. They are over-regulated. They are not just over-regulated by a single organization, they're over-regulated by multiple city agencies that one comes after the other, that they don't even have the same message. Someone will fix something and it'll be wrong for the next one. So we really need to become pro-business, take a look at what the city is doing, what they're enforcing, what rules they have, and then push that forward so we can grow. If we can grow here and we get jobs, we can work on some of the infrastructure, clean this place up. There's no stopping this community.
So I think we need to address the tax code to make it more attractive for businesses to come into Virginia, relocate to Virginia, and provide us with more jobs, bring more jobs to Virginia. our business tax is roughly 200% plus higher than the tax in North Carolina. And just think about that for a second, what that means. You can be in Virginia, but you can drive 30 minutes down the road, and your business corporate tax rate drops from 6% down to 2.5%. Now, Northern Virginia, that's not so much of a problem because the surrounding states and the northern states, their tax rates are much higher. So Northern Virginia has a good competitive advantage there. But in our area, the Hampton Roads area, it's basically like we're a law when it comes to taxes. Because if you come down here, you can travel a few minutes down the road and have a much lower tax rate. It makes states like Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina more attractive. So we need to adjust the tax code so we can bring more companies and more jobs to Virginia.
Norfolk is a seaport city. We have a world-class port. Let's work on expanding that, bringing, more infrastructure to support that so we can bring more business here, offer tax incentives. We're also the world military headquarters. Let's keep those military folks here. Let's offer incentives to our military, to our veterans. The Small Business Administration has so many programs. Let's encourage women and minority-owned businesses and veteran-owned businesses. Let's make it more attractive. Let's keep the talent that we have here in Virginia. And again, let's encourage our students. We have such wonderful universities here, institutes of higher education. Let's support those students, encourage them, keep them here, and we can grow business in Virginia, in Norfolk. Thank you.
So my thing is this, right? Numbers are attractive. The more money you make, it's going to catch somebody's attention. I think they're onto something. You have to lower the tax, and so people can see more revenue in their companies, whether they're small or big. Another thing is, I took my son out when he was 11 years old, cutting grass, and I showed him the difference between making money or that don't take away taxes versus when we go to the store or McDonald's and they have taxes. And he understood the difference as an 11-year-old. So if we could put that message out there and introduce these bills to people and actually speak to these people, I think it will attract them and get even the Democrats to come along and cut the bills and make the right bills to increase the companies.
All right, so I think we've got about 12 minutes left, kind of right on that. So what we'll do is we'll do instead of a lightning round, we'll do a 2-minute wrap up. So think about your top 10 issues we talked about tonight. Think about the day, think about the report, think about all of the resources here. And what do you want to leave the folks here with to convince them that you're the candidate to vote for? We started with John. Let's start this time with Giovanni and go that way.
I'm here today, and I'm running because I want to be genuine with the people. The people really have lost interest in politics. I'm here to bring it from a perspective of righteousness, as a man of God, and I'm here to bring it from the reality of what's happening in the community. There's division and ideology, and that's a big issue is how people vote. I'm not here for that. I'm here to give people results. As a senator running independent, I'm not going to side with either or. I'm going to side with the people. What bills are right with the people? And that will be the reason why I'm running, and should be the reason why people should vote for me.
I'm a trial lawyer, so I know how to be tough when I have to be. But I also am a mediator and a negotiator. And I know how to build bridges. I know how to find common ground. I don't have an agenda. If you elect me and I go to Richmond, I'm not going with my agenda. You're electing yourselves to the House of Delegates because I'm going with your agenda in mind. And I want to hear from you. I want to talk to all of you, and I want to find out what is important to you. I hope that we've covered it all tonight. But if there is something that we haven't covered, please let me know, because I want to know about it. I want to hear about it. So again, I can build bridges. I can work with other people. I've heard time and time again from delegates who've said they've come back from from the General Assembly and said, you know what, it's amazing how often we have to work together. I'm able to do that. Some people are better at it than others, and I think I've known my reputation in my field for being a fair person. Firm but fair, that's what people have called me. And so I think that I can reach across, and instead of having people divided in their corners, I can bring people together. Thank you.
Well, as we all know, the House of Delegates hangs in the balance this year. It's absolutely crucial that we nominate the right candidate so we win in November. And I believe I'm that candidate. I have deep generational roots in Norfolk. I have strong ties to the community. And my common sense conservative approach has a lot of appeal. And that's the way we used to win in Norfolk. Norfolk at one time used to be a Republican town, believe it or not that many years ago. And we did it by putting forth qualified candidates that had strong ties to the community, and they advocated a common sense conservative agenda. And the people are ready for a change. They're hungry for a change. From Willoughby all the way over to East Beach, from Ocean View to Bayview, from Carrollton to Titustown, from Algonquin Park to Glenwood Park, from Meadowbrook, Larchmont, Lock Haven, all the way back over to Little Creek. The one universal constant is they're sick and tired of what they're seeing coming out of Richmond, and they're ready for a change. And with your help, by working together, we can bring that change. And imagine the message we will send to the General Assembly, to Richmond, and the rest of the Commonwealth if we send a Republican delegate from Norfolk to Richmond. It will send shockwaves around the Commonwealth and will lead to a restoration of common sense throughout our state. With your help, we've done it before, and we'll do it again. Thank you.
7, 8 months ago, sitting at my dining room table complaining about the power lines, sidewalks that dead-ended, the $1.8 billion surplus that the state of Virginia raised in taxes over the period of COVID. I went out to eat, I got a 12.5% tax on my food. 6 city, 6.5 liquor and food. I got my tax bill for my vehicle and said, how in the hell did my vehicle increase in value and my taxes go up on it? And my wife said, for God's sakes, either shut up or put up. And I said, thank you, sweetheart, I'm running for office. She said, that's not what I meant. And that was a desire I had. Everywhere I've been, everywhere I've lived in the military, I've been involved in the community, whether it was religious classes, whether it was youth soccer, youth baseball. I was very unfortunate and unfortunate. My last job, one of my last jobs, we had 14 people die down in Afghanistan. It was a very tough time for me, but caring for families, caring for children, being involved in the community, I've done that everywhere I've been, and I see it here that we just need somebody that's involved. I am out every day after work. I've taken this personally. I've gone everywhere I can. I took the class. Anybody who's hanging around here who is not registered to vote, I can register to vote you. And I carry those around with me when I door knock. I also have absentee ballots. If you need any information on that, I can provide that too, so you can get your thing. I keep track of those. I'm taking a plate out of the DEM book. I'm registering people to vote, and I'm going back when they get their absentee ballot and offering to turn it in for them and help them fill it out. So I've got a lot of ideas that I've got from all over the world. I've lived in Florida, Alabama, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maine, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. And I'd like to bring what works here, and I'd like to put that community service to this community, take it to Richmond, and make positive change in this area.
Let's go to the district list. From the time of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, up until the time of JFK and Barry Goldwater, the African American community has always voted Republican. Somewhere around LBJ, we lost that trust. That community has felt betrayed because of the Civil Rights Act. Now it's going to take a lot of work, headway. Once you lose someone's trust, it's going to take a lot of work to earn that trust back. And that's what one of the things I'm doing, is going out to the 93rd, which may be, some people consider a plus 20 Democrat. All right? Fine. But now I have to go out and rebuild that trust. Tell them the Republican is not the evil one here. That I see what you see. That I feel what you feel. I've been in this community since 1979. My kids went to the same school you went to. So now my grandkids are. Yes, I hear the gunshots at night. There's a difference between fireworks, pop, 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 pop. Gunfire, pop, 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 pop. Big difference. Drug houses just down the street from me. Yes, I see what they see. And therefore, that is one of the biggest reasons I feel I can run, is if you listen to some of the issues I've talked about already, their issues are also my issues. Education, security, crime, and their future. They want to make sure their income, there will be a job there for their kids and grandkids down the road. Yes, we are a maritime community, and was a major part of that for decades. But I have to tell you, we've got to put people into those areas. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.
All right, first of all, I want to say, please give it a good round of applause for our candidates up here. For Sylvia and everything who put this together. We really appreciate it. I'm going to ask Robert to turn the camera off.